Go right through the agenda, and next item is somehow I think is going to be related to shoreline as well, a wayfinding presentation. Mr. Turway, introductions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Tri-Cities River Shore Enhancement Council has been working for about a year now, maybe a little over, on getting wayfinding for the Tri-Cities so we'd have a consistent sign plan throughout the Tri-Cities to guide people into the Tri-Cities as a whole and then to each city independently, so that when they recognize these signs, they would know it's guiding them either to a sports field or a shopping center or the historic downtown or whatever the case may be. Chris Watkins is here, and she'll kick it off. Chris.
Great, thank you. Mayor Watkins and City Council members, thanks for this opportunity to come before the Council. Visit Tri-Cities and our Tri-Cities River Shore Enhancement Council, which Visit Tri-Cities manages, we're in charge of a task of creating a wayfinding master plan. And it started off with needing a consistent signage along our river shore, along the trail that was developed. And since we had two studies done, one was done by Roger Brooks in regards to branding, and the other one was one of those river shore studies that Gary Peterson just talked about. Also said that the need for wayfinding was very, very important, so people could even find the river shore. So we expanded on that, and our task was to develop a wayfinding master plan for the cities of Kennewick, Pasco, Richland, and West Richland. And the need for the study, again, was because of the studies that we had done. Also involved with our cities and helping to pay for the study was our three port districts, the Port of Pasco, the Port of Benton, and the Port of Kennewick. Also, Benton and Franklin counties are involved in the overall process as well. The Technical Committee, which is chaired by Rick Tearaway, and thank you, Rick, you're doing a great job with that, is comprised of staff with 9 jurisdictions who selected MERGE as a top candidate to assist in creating a master plan from a field of 8 qualified designs firms that submitted RFPs. The Technical Committee has been working with MERGE for about a year to create a design and programming documents to support the plan, which is nearly complete. To get to the point, we had stakeholders and the community, several open houses so that the general public could learn about wayfinding and also begin to understand the importance of a good wayfinding system throughout our region. So this evening, I'm pleased to introduce Glenn Swantek with MERGE, who is here to provide the council with an update on the project and also be able to answer your questions. And with that, I'll turn the meeting over to Glenn.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Watkins. Thank you, Council. So where we are with this project, you might have seen me here a while back, and we sort of did an introduction about wayfinding and what wayfinding was. And like Chris said, we've been working with the steering committee with each of the municipalities. We've gone through programming where all the potential locations for signage would go. You can see this has gone through 3 revisions so far. So we've been working closely with all of the planning departments and public works departments. Where we are with the project now is we've gone through the design process. We've presented 3 design options, and what you're going to see tonight is the final design direction for the entire system. We've gone out and programmed where everything goes, like I've said, so that gives us the ability to now expand on that menu of signs that you saw before. It was sort of limited at that time, but now tonight you'll see every type of signage that would be included as part of the system. So, so like we've gone through, we've listed what everything is going to say, where all of the locations are going to be, and what we've come up with are these design is the design direction. This design is based off of the Tri-Cities brand. It is really the focus of this is part of a communications toolbox, brand toolbox that will help connect the Tri-Cities, Pasco, Kennewick, Richland, West Richland. So, so you can start to see as I go through this how that can start to work, and that was one of the primary goals of this project. If you had each of the cities doing their own thing, it would not help join the community in a lot of the efforts that are being presented and that are initiatives that are going on now. So this is an example of gateway signage. So as you're coming in from the airport, it gives you a landmark that introduces you to Tri-Cities, listing the cities that are within Tri-Cities area. And also this is a smaller version and also a roadside version of the signage. Each of the cities has a color that is taken from the Tri-Cities brand. So we're using that as an identifier for the system. So as you're traveling from city to city, that color on the header will change. We also have opportunities on the back for unique design graphics that would characterize each of the municipalities. So this is out by the airport. So we're using natural sort of materials, stone, like a Cortez steel look, cutout graphics, and a sculptural element behind here. So this is probably the biggest gateway that you're going to have coming out of the airport. So it's a real nice introduction to Tri-Cities. We've also designed, so as you're traveling through to each of the municipalities, then you can see that the hierarchy switches. And then it becomes, the city of Pasco, and then the Tri-Cities logo is secondary to when you enter into each of those jurisdictions. You can start to see how that design style starts to carry out as well. So we've really expanded it out so you can see how for Richland, Pasco, Kennewick, West Richland, how that would switch out there. As you're coming into downtown areas, we want to identify that this is a downtown area. That was also a huge priority when we were planning out the wayfinding system. Get people to downtowns. So really pulling people through, not only with the signage, the vehicular signage, but also announcing your arrival into a downtown area. You have opportunity again to do unique patterns on the side, and then you can do artistic finials on the tops of these as well. And then this is the bulk of the system. It's really the vehicular signage system that is a component system. It's modular. So whether you have 2 messages, 3 messages, but on the backs of the signs, you're bringing through that pattern again, identifying which city you're in, and then also having Tri-Cities on the back side of the sign. These signs are all MUTCD compliant. They follow the rules of the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, reflective, copy, the proper height, the proper size, and they're all going to be consistent. So if you go back to that slide I just shown, it's a consistent system, and that helps reduce visual clutter because you're expecting to see information as you approach that intersection or that area. So you can see how that can work as a system throughout Tri-Cities. We like to use pictograms as much as possible on the signage. So this is all vehicular. So you've got lower speed scenarios in maybe a neighborhood or in a downtown, and then high speed scenarios when you're out in more rural areas, like maybe out by the wineries and areas like that, where you have a lot of high speed areas as well. I'm just going to keep going through these. It just sort of shows you we can mount to existing structures, poles, like in Richland, they have a lot of opportunities to do that, maybe even in Pasco. And then developed a system to direct to the parks. So it's a separate, it has more pictograms, but you're using the brown panels to identify that you're directing to a park system. So you can see how that kit of parts starts to work, where you have your headers, then you have the sign panel in the back, and then the pole is always a consistent. Then we get into a pedestrian level. So when you get into your downtown, is there places where you can get information? Kiosks? Can we retrofit some existing kiosks and just come up with new graphics, or repurpose those and repaint those? And then a whole trail system. So trail directional, trailhead identification signs, maps. So this starts to show some of the, using an information eye on the kiosk, having a downtown map, and maybe having an overall Tri-Cities map on the other side. And then sort of, a trail system that can go along the trails. I mean, we just talked about the river, and I think, making that connection along your riverfronts, this could be a really important part of that, that could help tie all of that together. So this is more of a, in more of an area that maybe is not developed, so you're doing just a simple post and panel sign. And then getting people to the visitor center, I think, is a really good starting point for people. So it's not just about the signs, but getting people to talk to that person so they can get that experience. So we said, when we looked at the Tri-Cities Business Center, where Visit Tri-Cities and TriDeck are, we said, you have to have like an information eye up there, just really make it visible. Add signage, whether that's on there. This is actually a wall with a trash bin on the other side of that, but that's a decision point where people need to turn in and get information. And then we realized that agriculture is huge here. That it's all about, so we thought that maybe having a system for the wineries and the vineyards would be also a good thing to do. So this is totally modular. It can be a simple slotted or beam with holes in it, where these panels can be changed out as wineries get added, as they change over or change names. But you can start to create winery districts, and it really creates a uniform system throughout, so that whenever you see one of these, that that's going to be a place where you can go. So we just like to start dropping them into renderings just to start to see how they're going to start to look. I don't know if you're familiar with this sign. I think a lot of people have never even seen this sign out near the mall in Kennewick. It's right off to the side. It's actually probably half the size of this, but you can start to see how that could start to look, even on more secondary entry points in. And then what some of the directional signage could look like on high-speed roads. Richland has a lot of park signage up there already, but we thought that maybe we could replace those with something that was consistent with the wayfinding system. Even identifying parking lots when you get to a parking lot. So we're thinking of all of the signage, so it's, you don't necessarily have to put it all in at once, but I think that, we're giving you basically the toolkit to implement. Trail signage, information kiosks in the wineries. I wanted to close with something that's really important. We can talk about the wayfinding system, but when you're up on the highways in the DOT's right-of-way, I think this is something that, with a simple idea here, I think that we can make a big difference in promoting Tri-Cities here. So you'll notice that, when you're driving along, you see these signs that say Richland next 3 exits, Pasco next 3 exits. Well, if we just did a simple enhancement marker on the top, that all throughout, it would really help unify the Tri-Cities. And it's something that we're proposing to DOT as a suggestion. This always gets me, because you've got cities that are all relatively about the same scale, about the same size. You really don't know when you're entering into one or another, even when you're on the highways. And all it says is city center. Like, okay, which one? Which city? The boundaries are so close, and the exits are so close on a lot of these. So if you just do that, that will help identify where you are within the Tri-Cities. We're trying to go for a blue header, but even if they make you, do it in a green header, it still works. It's still something that I think could really, really help. And with that, that's where we are. Our next step is we're going to take this design, we're going to document it, give you all of the technical drawings, colors, fonts, section views, materials, so that when you're ready to implement whatever phase of that you're ready, you can take those pieces and you can start to implement it.
In essence, it's a toolkit, and then each jurisdiction's going to have a varying schedule or phase or interest level of what all of these things, but you're giving us a suggested way to have a unified yet distinctive message for each of our cities.
Yes, and what we're going to do is we have sign quantities. We have sort of a range of budget range of what for each city of what they're what they're going to do. We've just actually worked that out recently because we just wrapped up the programming. We were here 2 weeks ago, driving around with all of the different municipalities with Rick and the Port of Pasco. So we've just updated all of that. So we can share what your quantities are specifically for Pasco and what the estimated budget would be. And that can kind of help you determine what you'd want to do and what your priorities are. If your focus is on downtown, maybe you can just implement that downtown area. I think the goal is, though, that you want all 4 cities to really make an impact at the same time, hopefully. Because it is about marketing the entire region. So that would be the ultimate goal from my standpoint, to see something like that. But at least you have options to do different things.
So maybe the question is, so Dave, that's all been budgeted for and we can just buy it all, right? Or Mr. Turway, you got the money in your department budget?
Well, we do have it in the CIP plan that
Okay.
was approved by council. And, as we look at this plan, as we toured the city, a lot of the signs that we already have up, this will replace them and really make them stand out. I don't know how many times on Lewis Street I've driven by 14th where it says aquatics facility that way. I don't even notice it, but if we enhance it like this, it'll really bring it out and help people find where they're looking.
Thank you.
But we would have to budget the money. And I did want to note another thing. It was great that you showed that sign right there, because, that is kind of a DOT standard city center. That's what they do. Because we actually talked to them about just downtown next exit. No, city center is our, but I come down 182 quite a bit, and right now the sign up there says 13 miles to Pasco. And that's when Pasco exit was at 20th. Right? So it's really only about 6 miles to Pasco. And I think it says like 8 miles to Richland. That's not counting from Queensgate when Richland starts now. So there's a lot of updating needs to be done on our state highways as well.
Yeah.
Good observation. Mr. Hoffman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few weeks ago, we had some discussion on signage. Was the term content neutral? Does this have anything to do with that?
Those were our ability to regulate private signs.
Okay, so this is
These would be public
arena,
signs.
And the concept of this doesn't deal with...
We do have control of what will go on these signs. That one I can guarantee you, so.
And they will be content neutral?
Well, it'll be specific to Pasco downtown or Tri-Cities but it'll be informative, public informative type
I'm
information.
still a little fuzzy on what content neutral means, but for this purpose, we're okay. Thank you.
For the most part, these signs replace existing signage that's out there, and which are, haphazard. I mean, they're different sizes, different mounting heights and things like that. So the terminology basically replaces what's out there already. We have added a few other destinations, but nothing is of a private business nature. It's all municipal, city halls, or tourism sort of parks and landmarks and things like that. So.
Mr. Flores?
Yes, thank you. Just to kind of follow up with Mr. Hoffman, that was a question I was going to ask as well, considering the content neutral in the sign code. Now, I'm looking at some of the designs and some of the signage and flagship kind of looking banners and styles like that. And I was gonna ask, Mr. Zabel on that, would we try to stay consistent with also our public facilities with that, or a consistent design, or try to keep some kind of consistency with that, so that when we do have the wayfinders, or we're doing landmarks for like Tigueris or some of our wineries, that the consistency might be with that, so that the sign shapes or colors or things like that might help with that wayfinding.
So we would want to stick with the system. Now, there are options in terms of how fancy we want to get, but the primary signs, in terms of color and the way they're set up, we would want to stay consistent with the plan. And as he said, there's flexibility in the way the signs are designed, so that we can take down and put up, and not have to reinstall a pole, for instance. So I think it's a good system. And we looked at many systems, and this is probably the most generic, flexible system that we could come up with.
Right. I believe I've seen some similar in some other cities, and I know it's very, very helpful, at least for me, to really distinguish with some bold, bright colors and some architectural designs in them. I think that really helped draw on it. My second question on this is, with the promotion of some of these attractions and tourist types area, were we going to receive any type of, and I don't know, maybe this might be from the visitation from Chris, any type of subsidy for that, for those signs that are going up to promote those areas, like our wineries, or things that are non-public for private industry?
I'm not aware of any at this point, but that certainly could be a topic of discussion.
Okay.
I think when you get into the private business, that is a formula that you could investigate, I think, because there is so much changeability in something like that. So, the way that, like, for instance, we did this system, where these are all little separate panels, where the structure could be maybe paid up front, but then if something changes, they would have to then, contribute to the maintenance or something like that of that particular sign. Just because it is such a you want to be able to build in that maintenance plan. Otherwise, it will just fall apart, and you'll have names up there that they go out of business or something, and it just never gets repaired. So you have to sort of build that into the system as well.
Thank you. That answered my question. Thank you.
Mr. Martinez?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to input that, these kind of things are absolutely necessary to move forward in the city. In some of the AWC conferences that I've gone to, and some of the things that I've also learned, like, for example, the city of Tacoma, it's pretty interesting, because I don't feel like I'm a very artistic person, but I do know that they hired an artist within their city, and it was amazing how it beautified the whole city and just turned it around, and had so much progress and so much more revenue, just so many things that it brought into a city. This is just one step, and it's obvious that I think we need to be good stewards and not taking down good signs that that were just put up, but rather implement these things as they're needed to take full advantage of what we already spent, and of course to make it fit within our budget. Now, obviously, as a council, we need to make sure that there's some other priorities that perhaps may come in the way, but this is something that I would be very much in favor of. I think it's a wonderful idea, puts all the cities kind of in the same playing field, if you will. When you're coming down 395 into the city of Kennewick and you see those artistic murals and those things that they put up over on South Ridge, it's attractive. People want to come in, people want to see, people shop, people bring their business here. And those are the kind of things we need to promote in Pasco as well, to beautify the whole Tri-Cities in general. But I think it's a wonderful idea. I think we should move forward as long as it fits within our budget, and I'm looking forward to this. Thank you.
Mr. Hoffman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. These signs meet a federal guidelines for size of letters and so forth?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so and really the only, the only guideline would, for wayfinding, and there is a section in the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control which the DOT follows for wayfinding. That's actually a newer section as part of that, so it helps us and that really applies mostly to the vehicular signage. So like anything pedestrian, you have a little more flexibility to do. But these are all breakaway systems. They use standard I-beam poles, for this part. But we do get a little creative in some of the colors and the headers up here. But this part is all falls within that.
The reason for asking is, this city in the last decade had to go through and change all of our street signs because the standard changed from the letters being this high to this high. Is that likely or possible to happen here?
No, because certain speed limits, like 25 miles an hour or less, it's 4-inch high copy. Above that, it's 6-inch high copy, and that's what we designed towards.
Is that going to go to 7 or 8?
I don't know.
It did.
I mean, I don't, but the thing is, too, you have to be aware that, yes, a sign like this can probably go to 7 and 8, but if you go 7 and 8, it means that this sign's going to grow out to here and become a lot larger. If you're in Richland, this goes to 7 to 8-inch high copy. The sign is going to be, like that big. So you have to work with the DOT, and we have experience working with the DOT so that it fits the context of where it's going. You just can't say, based on font height, that it's going to.
I hope you're right. Thank you. Mr. Zabel?
Yeah, that kind of a mandate from the feds would only pertain to regulatory signs, like speed limit signs or things like that. It really wouldn't pertain to wayfinding signs. Wayfinding signs, lettering is going to be, the height is going to be determined by the speed at which you're traveling and how far the sign away is from the road. That's really the driver.
Yeah.
And the artistic, inconsistency.
So, phase along the way for a unified presence for the Tri-Cities and the components of the Tri-Cities, the 4 cities. So, Pasco's presentation, you've got other cities that you're presenting
Oh,
to?
right. Tomorrow, we're Kennewick and Richland.
Kennewick and Richland doing the doubleheader Tuesday?
Oh, there's Chris over there.
Yeah. So we're one of the first ones to get to see it then?
Yeah, you are the
For the
first. Yeah.
first. Well, just from discussion, I think we're eager to move forward with this, and I think also Chris would probably echo the sentiment. This gives a unified message to our visitors with information and also an aesthetic component to make our greater Tri-Cities even better place to visit.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.